Halloween, the one night of the year when people intentionally try to scare themselves, and sometimes succeed a little too well. You'd think after centuries of ghost stories and slasher movies, humanity would know when to stop. But nope! Every October, someone out there decides to outsmart death by doing something so unbelievably stupid it could only end one way. In today's episode, we're diving into real Halloween tragedies. Stories that started with costumes, pranks, and spooky fun, but ended with police tape, fire trucks, and a whole lot of regret. From fake hangings that turned real to decorations that no one realized were actual bodies, these tales are both horrifying and absurd. A perfect mix for the world's most ironic holiday. So grab your pumpkin spice latte, turn down the lights, and remember, this Halloween, the scariest monster isn't hiding under your bed. It's human stupidity in a costume. Number 1. Jordan Moreland loved Halloween more than most kids love TikTok. He was that one neighbor who'd start hanging skeletons in September and argue that pumpkin spice was a lifestyle. One evening, Jordan decided to take his creativity to the next level. He grabbed a rope, tied a loop, and thought, you know what would really freak out my sister? If she walked outside and saw me hanging from a tree, brilliant idea, right? So Jordan set the scene. Rope on a branch, neck in the loop, perfect angle. He probably rehearsed his spooky face in the mirror too. Except while he was busy imagining her scream, he forgot one tiny detail. How to breathe. When his sister finally came outside, she didn't scream out of fear. She screamed because Jordan's prank had turned horrifyingly real. The rope had tightened around his neck, and unlike the horror movie villains he admired, Jordan didn't get a cut between takes. By the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. The decoration was no longer part of the Halloween display. It was the tragedy that ended it. Jordan's story quickly spread across Kentucky, a grim reminder that Halloween decorations should never involve your actual neck. His death certificate might as well have read, cause of death, method acting. Number 2. Now, if you think that story was morbid, let's head over to California. Land of sunshine, avocado toast, and apparently self-igniting costumes. Meet Gilbert Estrada, a man who loved Halloween so much, he decided to dress up as a sniper. But not just any sniper, Gilbert went full camouflage. His outfit was made entirely from burlap, straw, and ghillie mesh. Basically, a walking scarecrow with a nicotine addiction. So there he was, blending into the bushes, waiting to impress or terrify someone when the craving hit. Gilbert reached into his pocket, pulled out a lighter, and went for a casual smoke break. And that's when the universe said, sure, let's light this party up. One flick of the lighter, one spark, and whoosh! His sniper suit turned into a bonfire. The poor guy instantly went from Halloween costume to Human Torch. Neighbors saw a burning figure running across the yard and thought it was part of a show. By the time they realized it wasn't, the flames had done irreversible damage. Gilbert's cause of death was officially listed as thermal injuries. But in Darwinian terms, it was death by irony. The man who dressed as a hidden sniper managed to make himself the brightest thing on the block. Let's be honest, if you wear a suit made of straw and burlap, maybe don't mix it with open flame. It's not fashion, it's kindling. Number 3. Our next story takes us far from the American suburbs to Hong Kong. Proof that stupidity knows no borders. In 2017, a local amusement park decided to get festive with an attraction called Buried Alive. It was supposed to be a harmless thrill. Visitors lay inside a coffin that slowly moved on a track, simulating being buried underground. Creepy? Absolutely. Dangerous? Supposedly not. But then came one man who decided that the do not enter sign was more of a polite suggestion than a rule. While the staff were resetting the ride, he snuck into a restricted maintenance area to take what he probably thought would be a cool selfie or an epic TikTok clip. Instead, he ended up inside the mechanism, right when a moving coffin started its automatic cycle. Moments later, the coffin's hydraulic arm struck him with full force. The man was crushed inside the machinery, a grim, real-life version of the attraction's name. Park officials described it as a tragic accident. But let's be honest, it takes a special kind of genius to die inside a ride called Buried Alive. He paid for a simulated death experience and got the premium package. Number 4. Our next story takes us back to the innocent days of the 1950s. When teachers still smoked in the parking lot, kids feared the paddle, and apparently, school safety demonstrations could kill you. Meet William Halbert Sully, a school principal from Kansas. William wasn't your average boring educator. He wanted his lessons to leave an impression. And what better way to teach kids about the dangers of hanging than by showing them firsthand? Yes, that's right. His brilliant idea was to stage a fake hanging right in front of his students. He probably thought it'd be the most unforgettable assembly ever. And he was absolutely right, just not for the reasons he expected. So, on a crisp October morning, William set the scene. He tied a rope, climbed up on a stool, and explained to his students that this was all just pretend. A powerful visual, a don't try this at home kind of deal. Then, in what was supposed to be the grand finale, he stepped off the stool, planning, of course, to put some of his weight on the rope and swing gently, showing how it would look, safely. Except safety wasn't exactly part of the curriculum that day. He slipped. The knot tightened around his neck faster than he could react, and the mock hanging turned into a full-blown tragedy. The kids, bless their traumatized souls, probably thought it was part of the act at first, until their teacher stopped moving. When adults rushed to help, it was too late. The principal's educational demonstration had become a real-life cautionary tale. And so, William Sully managed to prove his point after all. Hanging really is dangerous. Lesson learned, permanently. If there's ever been a case for the Darwin Awards educational outreach category, this would be it. He taught the kids about the dangers of poor decision-making by showing them the most graphic example possible. Number 5. Now let's fast forward to modern times. Same spooky season, same poor judgment. This story comes from Dayton, Ohio, and it's about a girl named Christian Faith Benge, 16 years old, full of life, and excited to visit one of those giant haunted house attractions that pop up every October. You know the ones. Dark corridors, people jumping out in masks, fake blood everywhere, and your friends laughing while you scream like a dying raccoon. Except for Christian, it wasn't all fun and games. See, she'd been born with only one functioning lung, which meant her heart already worked overtime. But like most teenagers, she figured, what's the worst that could happen? Her family took her to Land of Illusion, a popular horror park in Middletown, Ohio. And at first, it was all laughs and adrenaline, until about halfway through, when one of the haunted houses got a little too real. Actors jumped out, the music screamed, strobe lights flashed, and Christian's heart couldn't take it. She collapsed right there inside the attraction. Staff rushed to help, Paramedics were called. CPR was performed. But nothing worked. She was pronounced dead shortly after, her heart having literally given out from the shock. Now, this wasn't your typical Darwin Award story full of stupidity and explosions. It's tragic in a quieter, more ironic way. Christian's death made national headlines, and people debated whether haunted houses had gone too far. But the truth is, she made a fatal mistake long before the first monster jumped out. She knew her condition, and she ignored it. Number 6. Let's go in England, a land known for tea, politeness, and apparently highly flammable costume design. One particularly creative man decided to dress up as a sheep. Not a metaphorical sheep, mind you, an actual woolly, full-body sheep. His costume? Made entirely of cotton balls. Thousands of them glued onto his body like a human-sized Q-tip. Now, cotton is basically nature's Tinder. It burns faster than your paycheck after Halloween weekend. But our hero wasn't worried. What could possibly go wrong on a crowded subway surrounded by drunk partygoers carrying open flames? So there he is, standing proudly on the train, probably feeling like the most adorable ball of fluff in London. Then, someone nearby, a curious stranger, perhaps a fellow partygoer, perhaps Satan himself, flicked a lighter. Just a little click. Maybe to light a cigarette. Maybe to see what happens. Well, what happened was instant barbecue. The cotton went up faster than a dry Christmas tree, and our human sheep suddenly became a human torch. Panic erupted. Passengers screamed. Someone tried to smother the flames, possibly with their jacket, possibly with beer. His friends, bless their tipsy souls, decided to pour alcohol on the costume, thinking it might cool the burns. Alcohol on fire. The math, as usual, did not add up. By the time help arrived, our fluffy friend was very much well done. He survived technically, but only after spending months in recovery and learning the hard way that flammable costumes and public transport don't mix. If there's a lesson here, it's simple. Never turn yourself into a mobile campfire. Number 7. Now, let's cross the Atlantic to Pennsylvania, where someone took the phrase egg the power way too literally. Picture it. A gloomy Halloween night, rain pouring down, thunder rolling. Somewhere in a suburban neighborhood, a group of friends decided that the real fun wasn't in trick-or-treating, but in egging stuff. Houses, cars, street signs, classic teenage rebellion. But one genius decided to up the ante. Why stop at houses when you can egg an electrical substation? Yes, the place with big warning signs that say, danger, high voltage. The place surrounded by fences, sparks, and equipment, humming with thousands of volts of electricity. The kind of place even raccoons know to avoid. But not this guy. Armed with a carton of eggs and zero common sense, he began hurling them at the metal structures. Now, eggs conduct electricity when wet, and it was pouring rain. You can already see where this is going. The moment the first egg splattered, there was a blinding flash, and a sound like the heavens themselves just sneezed. The resulting explosion sent a shower of sparks, fried several transformers, and nearly sent our hero to meet the Great Pumpkin in person. He was thrown backward, his ears ringing like a church bell factory, his hair looking like it just auditioned for a static electricity experiment. Emergency crews rushed in, probably expecting a major power failure. What they found was a half-dazed, smoking figure lying in the mud, holding an empty egg carton and muttering something about just a prank. Miraculously, he survived, though probably with a permanent reminder every time it rains. The substation, however, didn't, The damage cost tens of thousands of dollars and blacked out half of the neighborhood. Number 8. Michigan, 2011. A group of partygoers decided that celebrating Halloween in an old building with a creaky antique elevator would be fun. Now, any building manager would tell you that a decades-old elevator is about as trustworthy as a politician's promise. But when the music's blasting and everyone's in costume, common sense disappears faster than free candy at a kid's party. Someone had the bright idea. Hey, let's all take the elevator together. It was small, old, and clearly marked with a maximum capacity sign, which of course made it more of a suggestion than a rule. One by one, witches, vampires, and drunk pirates piled in until the poor machine gave a metallic groan that sounded like it was begging for mercy. But instead of stepping out, someone laughed. It's fine. It's Halloween. Live a little. And the elevator decided to let them die a little. With a gut-wrenching snap, the cable gave out, and the group plummeted nearly 10 feet before slamming to a stop. In the movies, that's when the hero climbs out, dusts off, and cracks a joke. In real life, it's when the paramedics get called. 4 people ended up in the hospital with fractures and concussions, while the rest were left in shock, covered in spilled beer and regret. Witnesses later said they thought it was part of the haunted experience. Yeah, because nothing says spooky like spinal injuries and a lawsuit waiting to happen. Gravity doesn't care about your Halloween costume. Number 9. But Michigan wasn't the only state that year where people forgot how the world works. Travel east to Maine, the land of lobsters, fog, and apparently pyromaniac teens. During a school Halloween assembly, one student decided that his buddy's homemade costume, a full-body outfit made of dry grass, leaves, and bad ideas, looked a little too flammable to resist temptation. So, naturally, he asked the question that has led to countless trips to the ER. Hey, do you think that burns? Before anyone could answer, he flicked his lighter. One tiny flame, 1 second of curiosity. And in the blink of an eye, his friend became a walking bonfire. The costume went up faster than kindling, and the school auditorium turned into a scene straight out of a low-budget horror movie. Teachers were screaming, students were running, and the kid who started it stood frozen, realizing that his harmless prank had gone horribly, predictably wrong. Luckily, a quick-thinking teacher grabbed a stage curtain and managed to smother the flames before things got even worse. But the damage was done. His friend suffered severe burns. And our scientist learned 2 valuable lessons. Fire burns and stupidity has consequences. When reporters later asked what motivated him, he reportedly said he didn't think it would catch that fast. Ah, yes, the eternal words of someone just moments away from a Darwin Award nomination. Number 10. Paris, 2016. Disneyland. The happiest place on earth, right? A place full of magic, laughter, and rides that make you feel like a kid again. But behind that perfectly engineered fantasy lies an industrial maze of wires, motors, and voltage strong enough to fry a castle-sized mouse. And somewhere deep inside the Phantom Manor attraction, one technician learned that haunted wasn't just part of the branding. It was early morning before the park opened, when a maintenance worker entered a restricted area to perform what should have been a routine inspection. Phantom Manor, Disneyland Paris's version of the Haunted Mansion, relies on a complex electrical system that powers animatronics, lighting, and all those spooky effects guests love. But as every safety manual ever written has tried to warn, Electricity doesn't care about your job title. Instead of shutting down the current, isolating the circuit, or, you know, following the giant red signs that said danger, high voltage, the man stepped right into a live zone. One wrong move, one touch of a charged component, and a fatal jolt of electricity surged through him. Park officials later described it as a tragic workplace accident, which is PR speak for he didn't follow the rules. Guests arriving that morning saw the attraction mysteriously closed, with no idea that just hours earlier, someone had met their end inside what was supposed to be a pretend haunted house. There's a certain grim irony here. A man dies maintaining a ride designed to simulate death. Phantom Manor was meant to give people a thrill, a playful chill down their spine. Instead, it delivered the real thing, not through ghosts, but through the one invisible spirit that truly kills. 240 volts of French electricity. Number 11. And while that's a modern example of how ignoring warnings can literally end you, let's rewind the clock almost a century. To 1938, America's golden age of radio and one of the greatest mass freakouts in history. The night before Halloween, October the 30th, millions of Americans tuned in to hear a young Orson Welles deliver his now infamous broadcast of The War of the Worlds. Presented as a series of live news bulletins, it claimed that Martians had landed in New Jersey and were vaporizing everything in sight. The production was so realistic, with on-the-scene reporters, sound effects, and dramatic pauses, that people forgot one tiny detail. It was fiction. Within minutes, chaos spread like wildfire. Listeners who missed the opening disclaimer thought the world was ending. Families packed their cars and fled into the night. Police stations were flooded with calls. Hospitals reported people collapsing from panic attacks. In some areas, armed citizens patrolled the streets, scanning the sky for alien death rays. And while Wells sat in his studio, oblivious to the hysteria, America collectively lost its mind. Some jumped from moving cars, trying to escape poison gas clouds. Others fainted or injured themselves while barricading doors and windows. One man even wrapped his head in wet towels, apparently convinced it would block Martian heat rays. Humanity's imagination went into overdrive, powered by pure fear and bad radio reception. No one officially died that night, though several ended up in hospitals with heart problems and injuries from their own overreactions. But if the Darwin Awards had existed in the 1930s, the entire country might have been nominated for Mass Panic Group category. The most incredible part? When Orson Welles realized what had happened, he was shocked. Not by electricity, but by how easily people believed it. His broadcast had turned rational adults into terrified survivors of an alien apocalypse. All because they trusted the voice on the radio more than their own eyes. It was a different kind of natural selection, not physical, but mental. A test of how far human gullibility could go. And it passed with flying colors. Number 12. New York, the city that never sleeps, unless someone spikes your drink with eye drops. Yes, this Halloween tale begins not with witches or vampires, but with one woman who apparently thought she was auditioning for a low-budget horror film titled Pranks That Send You to Prison. So, picture a cozy Halloween party in a New York apartment. Candles flicker, plastic bats hang from the ceiling, and someone is wearing an overused, sexy nurse costume because of course they are. And there, among the pumpkins and gossip, stands our self-proclaimed queen of pranks. She decides her best friend could use a little scare but not the jump out of the closet type. No, this was chemical warfare with Vicine. For those blissfully unaware, Vicine isn't some harmless water for your eyes. It's got tetrahydrozoline, a compound that can drop your blood pressure faster than your dignity after too many tequila shots. But our prankster didn't read the label. She poured a few drops into the punch bowl, giggling about how her friend would maybe get a little dizzy. Well, dizzy was an understatement. Within an hour, people started feeling unwell. Her target began struggling to breathe, and what was supposed to be a night of laughs turned into a 911 emergency. The poor victim suffered respiratory failure and didn't make it. The prankster, meanwhile, went from party host to handcuffed guest of honor in a holding cell. And when the cops asked why she did it, her answer was reportedly, "I just wanted to freak her out a little." Mission accomplished, though probably not in the way she imagined. Let's just say she won't be getting invited to any Halloween parties again, unless they're in prison. Number 13. Now, let's talk about one of the most chilling and tragically absurd Halloween stories ever to come out of Delaware. In the quiet town of Frederica, the line between holiday decoration and crime scene got blurred in the most jaw-dropping way possible. It started one October morning when locals were walking their dogs, sipping pumpkin spice lattes, and admiring the spooky setups around the neighborhood. Cobwebs, skeletons, orange lights, the usual. Then someone noticed a particularly realistic decoration hanging from a tree. A human figure. It looked too real, but hey, it's Halloween. People get creative, right? So they shrugged, took selfies, and complimented the artist behind the decoration. Hours went by. Kids walked past it on their way to school. Cars slowed down for a look. And nobody realized that this wasn't a mannequin. It was an actual woman who had died by hanging. The tragic part? The body was there for hours before anyone called the authorities. Everyone assumed it was just part of someone's elaborate, spooky setup. It wasn't until a maintenance worker got close enough that he noticed the truth and immediately called 911. Police later confirmed it wasn't foul play, just a heartbreaking personal tragedy that went unnoticed because of the holiday's creepy aesthetic. But what really sticks with you is the surreal irony. People admired a real corpse for its realism. It's one of those moments where you realize Halloween might have gone a little too far. When we decorate our lawns with fake tombstones and hanging ghosts, maybe, just maybe, we should pause for a second before saying, "Wow, that one looks so real." Because sometimes it is. And that, folks, wraps up our Halloween horror reel. 13 true stories proving that sometimes the scariest thing about October 31st isn't ghosts or ghouls. It's human stupidity. From haunted houses that turned a little too real to pranks gone criminal, these tales remind us that every year, someone out there looks at danger and says, "Yeah, that sounds fun." Spoiler alert, it's never fun. So this Halloween, maybe skip the genius ideas involving electricity, homemade pyrotechnics, or chemical cocktails. Light a candle, eat some candy, and most importantly, keep your brain turned on. It's the best costume you'll ever wear. If you enjoyed this wild ride through human foolishness, don't forget to hit subscribe. We've got plenty more real-life horror stories coming your way. Drop a comment below and tell us which story made your jaw drop the most. Or which one made you lose faith in humanity. And above all, stay safe, stay smart, and try not to make next year's Darwin Awards list.